back to coaching, and I've been blessed over many years as a coach with great coaching staff with me, so assistants and management as well, so officials. Um, of course, coaching teams, assistants that you get given or that you hire yourself, rep teams tend to get a choice of the assistants that you want in many cases. Also, when I've run programs, coaches started developing underneath me on those programs too. So, as a head coach, I want to offer something here as a bit of a guide to many of you about how to use your assistants. So I like my assistants to do a lot of the coaching, not just to stand there watching me. They're not just there to pick up cones or just to shout encouragement. I want them to do some work. And I often find that if I've got assistants that I can trust and who can deliver what I need delivering, that I can stand back 10 or 20 meters from what's going on and watch it properly. And the reasons for doing these things and including your assistants are simple. 2, 3, or 4 minds are far better than one. Even if you're the most senior rugby league person, that if every coach you have brings in one extra idea, that makes you 3 ideas better off, or 2 ideas better off, or 1 idea better off. Different voices and perspectives keep things refreshing for players. If you're the only person talking to your team all the time, that maybe will have a shelf life. Putting trust in your assistants allows you as the head coach to do the most important things, such as watch what's going on, make observations, see the bigger picture, and maybe identify who's leading, or who's sitting at the back or standing at the back, who's injured, who's off colour, etc., etc. Also, it's not your team; it's everyone's team. It's not my team; it's our team. Now, guess who the best assistant coaches are too? Your players. Peer coaching is huge. Think about it. If you get some feedback off a fellow player who you really respect or look up to, that carries, I think, more weight than anything that a coach who's maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years older can do. Because you're going to battle with them players that are giving you the feedback. You're going into battle with that player who you really respect. And if they give you some feedback, that's huge. So the more you can educate your players, the more they'll coach each other. Don't be scared to do that. Ronaldo Mulatalo used to do my team talks every week at Ipswich State High School when he was captain. I just told him what I wanted in there, but I left the rest to him because it did more for the players before a game. I wasn't up my own arse as much as to think that they always needed to listen to me. It's not the Lee Addison show. They listened to me all week. They wanted to listen to their captain, and he was great at it. I will say this, that Ronaldo Mulatalo is the most influential player I ever coached. And one of the reasons is I allowed him to be influential. When I was in Poland, coaching the test match against Czech Republic in Poland, I had problems to deal with, such as people couldn't speak English. And a lot of us couldn't speak Polish. So I had to divvy the team up so that somebody Polish and somebody English was next to somebody bilingual on the field and at training. And I also told 3 of the players that they were assistant coaches. And I gave them assistant coach status. And I put an awful lot of the coaching emphasis on those players because in some cases they had to teach others how to play the ball properly or run the correct line or to be in this position in the defensive line or that position in attack. And if I'd have tried to do it all myself, because no assistant could travel with me, sessions would have been 4 hours long. It would have been too much. And we won the test match. So they're your best assistants players. Pick out the senior players in your team. Get them to coach and help you coach some of the players who are less experienced and less able. So many of you coaches talk to me and say, Lee, I've got 6 players of this standard and 6 players of that standard, and 6 that are in between. How can I deal with that? Well, you need to get the 6 of the top standard to do just as much coaching as you. It's easier to bring somebody with you as a player than it is to send somebody there as a coach sometimes. In the last couple of weeks, I've been at a couple of sessions that coaches did and gave them some feedback. I've not actually asked this coach if I can read this feedback out, but I won't identify him, so you don't know who it is. And I'm not going to give you all the feedback that I gave to him. I'm just going to give you some of the main points because it will be useful to you. I find particularly Australian coaches, but English coaches can be like this too, and Kiwi coaches, they're just so relaxed sometimes. And there's not a clear start to things and a clear end to things sometimes, and players go for drinks, and there's an ill-defined time of when they need to be back, and the tail can start to wag the dog a little bit. I do remember one of the big reflections I had about coaching in Australia after spending so much time coaching in England was that the Aussie players seemed to be in less of a rush to move around because the temperatures were so much hotter. Yet in England, they were keen to run around because the temperatures were so much colder. And it meant that my feedback or my instructions had to be short and sharp. And I think the mixture of having that upbringing and then coming to Australia has really helped me become the coach that I am, in the sense that I've realized how important it is to make your messages short and sharp and to have clearly defined starts and ends to different activities and goals in mind and the like. So one of the first bits of feedback I gave to this coach was to have an official start to training. So I think I mentioned last week about the importance of a circle, or using a circle where players bound together can focus and get a clear idea that this is the start of training. Right now is the start of training. So whatever we've done now beforehand, so all that game of touch you played, all those goals you're kicking, we are now starting training. And from this circle, you tell the players what you want them to focus on and what you're looking for. In the warm-up, practice something. Practice something in your game that you want to fix or keep fixing or keep working on. So I'm a big fan of rotating a few warm-ups, a couple of offensive ones, a couple of defensive ones. Things like passing grids, 3v2, games, small-sided games, rhythm run defensive lines. The coach I was working with did that drill where it's a mapping drill, defensive mapping drill, but one player starts, goes forward and then back at an angle, and then collects a second kid, and then the two collect the third, etc., etc. And then when they're doing something like that, when they're doing their defensive mapping, try and make sure you practice that every player moves in the same direction in the same way. So if they're moving to the right, if they're sliding to the right, they stick their left foot in the ground and slide to the right together. If they're sliding to the left, vice versa, right foot in the ground, slide together. Because what happens is some players turn nice and sharply, some turn early, whereas others turn later. Also, some do a massive semicircle when they turn slower than the Titanic. So imagine you're in a defensive line, you're running straight, the coach points one way or the other. Let's say he points to your left, you stick your right foot in the ground, not too severely, but you change direction on that 45-degree angle to the left. I want all of you coaches to have a think about the cues. So people queuing up at your drills. Sometimes you can put 2 drills on of the same thing, then all the players are doing something. This coach I was working with, I actually videoed what the players were doing when they were queuing up to join in a drill. And I can promise you they were doing everything but focusing on the drill and what the coach was talking. So he was basically working with 5 players while 15 were not involved or something like that. Now, what I do want to say about this coach, he's a very, very, very good community club coach in a community club. Absolutely. Can he coach rep football moving forward? Absolutely. Because when I sat with him and gave him this feedback, it was a lot more than this, but this was the crux of it. I didn't once say to him, you coached the wrong thing. Not even did I say he coached it in the wrong way. It was more about tightening up his processes and making the start of each section of a session a clearly defined start and end. Including drink breaks, right?